Morning, everyone. Happy Friday, F3 Friday. We're so happy to see everyone. Dad, how are you? I am Faith Suggs, Duke Women's basketball graduate, and this is my wonderful father over to the right and left of me, if some of you are watching, Shafer Suggs, former NFL player with the New York Jets, as you can see all over his room, as well as the Cincinnati Bengals. Happy Friday, Dad.
Happy Friday, Faith Suggs. How are you?
It's a holiday Friday, too.
4th of July. So I've been hearing the fireworks all over the place. So looking
Well,
forward to this.
definitely. Yeah, Devin's been calling me, telling me Chicago's just been putting fireworks out, even though even, even before 4th of July.
Oh, all week off of balconies. So I don't know. It'd be interesting to see how people kind of navigate through not being able to
Go
congregate
out.
and yeah, right. So I'm excited. Yeah. Pam, Sandra,
Morning,
cousin. Yeah,
morning. What are your plans? Yes, happy Friday. Yay.
Billy. So we
What are
are
your
probably gonna run over to your Uncle Mike's house and hang out. So that's what our plans are. Um,
nothing crazy?
what are you gonna do?
No idea. No idea. For those of you, I know all of us have our own memories of 4th of July. We had our memories. Remember, we used to always dress up in our Tommy Hill figure, red, white, and blue. Unfortunately, now that I think about it, why did y'all do that to us?
Faith, I
Our
did
matching
not
outfits.
dress you up in red, white, and blue Tommy Hilfiger. The whole family matching. I don't ever remember doing that.
We were like the little Brady, biracial Brady bunch with all our matching outfits and matching hair. Well, everyone, thank you for joining us. We are so excited. This is a fun day. Fridays are fun, but this is super fun because everyone hopefully is in a great mood because we all know we're going into a holiday weekend. We want to welcome back our F3 Friday family. Those of you who are coming in saying hello, send us a wave or a hello or a good morning. Those of you who are new, welcome. We are a father daughter duo, and our goal is to use our story and our faith to strengthen the family core of our viewers, our own family core, and those of us who are around us. For those of you tuning in, we really appreciate you. We hope everyone is settling in and has their Suggs mugs. For those of you who don't know what a Suggs mug is, Father, model your Suggs mug. I don't have mine yet. He hasn't sent it.
Suggs mug. And then on the other side, it actually says
Oh, coffee. What
Suggs.
was
I
this?
did. I know. I'm sloppy.
But Dad, why don't you tell us a little about the trivia question while I have it run across the bottom of our page, and you can give people a little heads up. This was his idea.
Okay, so we owe people. I mean, I think our last show we asked people that would make comments to send the email
Mm-hmm.
to. I don't know. Do you have the email address there? Here, and we will send you out a sucks mug, and we would
If
like for you
you
to
answer the
what?
question, if
Yeah,
you answer the trivia question,
yeah. Okay, now this is a new one, so we still owe people sucks mugs from last show, but
mm-hmm.
today. During the show, if you can answer, we have a trivial question. It's regarding Faith while you were playing at Duke women's basketball. And the trivial question is, what year did Faith Suggs lead the Duke Blue Devils in charges taken? So you get 4 years. So you're what, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19? So what year did Faith Suggs lead the Duke
Yeah,
Blue Devils in charges taken?
right. You just comment it. Also, those on the Suggs mugs, if you don't email us, you can also send us a direct message on Facebook with your
Yeah.
address or information, and we are high tech and easily accountable. We go with the flow. We are easy flowing people. A few announcements before we dive into everything, because today is about raising a man, and those of you all can relate to that. We had our girl
Uh,
dad show, 2017, wrong, but
Run.
um, we uh, we are super happy to go over how he is also a boy dad, and for all of our boy moms, boy dads who are tuning in, this is gonna be a fun show for you guys. But make sure you also check out our website, faithfamilyfocus.net. We have our blogs, we have our bios, we have every single show you can find. We are on our 30th episode. So, for those of you who are tuning in, we see you trickling in, take a visit over to the website. We also, again, we have the running trivia question going. So, stay involved, shoot us questions throughout the show. We are easily accountable. We are lovely. Take a little detour to talk to you guys. Dad, let's dive into our topic a little bit and talk about what we're going to get into today. Good
Okay.
morning. Good morning to
Good
you
morning,
guys.
Hazel. So let me
Today,
on that trivial question, right? You got to remember they have four choices. So there's three left, right? Sorry.
yeah, and honestly, just keep guessing. We'll send you guys mugs. Reminder, direct message, send us your information, and we'll get you a mug, and then send us a picture of you with your mug.
There you go. All right,
So
thanks.
today is fun. We are on with the Ultimate Super Dad today to talk about being a boy dad. We had our girl dad episode. A lot of you loved it, but today we're going to dive into how important it is to raise a man in today's society, let alone in general. We have another part of our trio, Devin Suggs. He is 18 years old, 18, going to Yale in August. So we have seen his process, and a lot of you have seen him on a couple times, 3 times in the episodes. And we're going to talk about a little bit today about how important it is in his self confidence and how he views himself as a man. We're going to talk about how he treats women and those around him, and kind of the go-to guidelines of things to put into his life so he can kind of impact others as well as holding himself responsible as a good person.
Mm-hmm.
I think that it's very important because a lot of us agree uh, young men are kind of our society is often in the hands of them. So it's very important because they have a lot of responsibility for our future. I think we got lucky. We got a pretty good one. He's easy to work with, I would say. I don't know what you would say,
Oh.
but we are so glad. If you guys ever have any questions regarding this, we can't promise that we're perfect, but I promise you we most likely have answers to your question. So shoot us a question. Also, keep sending us answers to the trivia question. So let's dive a little bit into self-confidence of a young man. Dad, before we get into your own son, let's talk about you. What did you remember as a young boy about your own father instilling self-confidence? And give people kind of a lay of the land of what year this was and kind of so they can imagine what was going on.
Very different. Um, if DCFS was around during that time, my dad would probably wouldn't be around. But there were very specific things that formulated my self confidence, and the things that I did as a young black boy that he exposed us to, both him and my mom exposed us to, that really gave me an edge. And it's getting out of our comfort zone of doing things that were not the norm. Boy Scouts, and then watching him participate in Boy Scouts and being a den father. I was in the soapbox derby. I was the only black kid in the soapbox derby. And I remember my car being a lot different than the other cars because we actually built our car. It was a little bit wider than the other cars. And I remember being made fun of by the kids because I think our sponsor was Nichols Bakery, and it looked like a bread box going down the hill, and it was like the bread box derby. But my dad said something to me after that race because I came in last, and all the cardboard on the car that he stapled was flying off as I was going down the hill. And when I finished, the kid that I was racing against was actually getting out of his car. But so at least you participated in it. As much as it was somewhat embarrassing, I realized that he put me in a situation where he gave me an opportunity where a lot of kids, if they didn't, have a dad, didn't put himself in. And I remember we had the Pinewood Derby, which was in Boy Scouts.
Mm-hmm.
He said, "We're not going to let that happen again." So we carved a little Pinewood Derby block, and he actually spent a little extra time making sure that our results were going to be different, and we actually won it. But those are the kind of things, and I think it was a combination. You talked about my dad relationship, but my mom too was very instrumental in kind of formulating my confidence and put me out there, and because I watched them do the same thing. I watched them participate in and parent teachers. And I watched him go to March on Washington, and I watched him. We went camping, so all the things that as a young boy, African American boy, kind of gave me some confidence. And another thing, my dad did was, he was really tough on me. I used to get bullied a little bit. He got to a point where
Right.
he told me that, listen, you need to stop getting bullied, right? So if you come home one more time with missing your baseball or your shirt torn off, I'm going to take care of you. So, so my choice was to go back there. But he taught me how to stand up for myself, but not just physically, but also mentally too. So those are some things. Again, they were old school. He was a young dad. He was brought up differently, but as I kind of navigate my path as a father, there are some things that I would do differently, but I would still have some of the same mindset that kind of instilled the
Right.
kind of confidence in me that worked.
And you had how many brothers?
So I had Mike, my brother Mike, who was on the show, and then my brother Clint, who just recently passed away about a year ago, and then my sister Veronica, who's a retired teacher. So there was four of us, and we were close together, so we could all sit here. Of course, all the stories, and we all
Right.
have very, very similar stories about being raised by my mom and dad, and we all kind of experienced the same thing. But they paid attention to us. They spent time with us, which was wonderful. I mean, there was obviously mistakes making because there's no playbook for being a parent.
Yeah.
I mean, as you well know, in our path and how we have navigated it. But yeah, I can go on and talk on and on and on. But what I do realize is that he really really taught me how to stand up for myself, which was important back in those days.
How do you think that that one little lesson helped influence maybe how you carried yourself in as an adult? Like how did it impact your confidence as an adult in those time periods, do you think? Those many lessons and that time he spent and time that she spent with you and your brothers, of course, Aunt Bonnie, but as men especially, how do you think that it impacted you as an adult?
Tremendously, tremendously. Um, as I took those steps up as I grew up, each step was different because I found myself being a big brother too,
Right.
and being a protective person. Okay, I found myself being that first person to kind of take those journeys, being the first, right? And it really, I think, for me, being an athlete early on, um, really kind of built a lot of my self confidence. And as you well know, part of my journey was when I was an athlete, I broke both my legs simultaneously, not simultaneously, but my ninth grade and my 10th grade years. And I remember the one thing that I loved in life most was seemed to be gone. And my self esteem, I was kind of lost. And it was my parents that said, listen, you still have these other things. I mean, they supported me, but I was still, they still spent a lot of time on the other things. We talked about this in the Raising of a Champion. I was still in a band. I was still doing the other things. I was still in Boy Scouts, still in Cub Scouts. And because of their love and support, I was able to kind of turn that around, rehabilitate myself. And I had those confidants. I had those other dads, those
Right.
coaches, those uncles were also a real part of helping me formulate and supporting me as a young man because I can look back and really Coach Kurth was really instrumental, to helping me just never give up and like we mentioned in our Raising of the Champions, sometimes it takes multiple situations, multiple people to help
Hmm.
raise a young man.
Hmm. Well, listening to you kind of talk about your childhood a little bit gave me a question. When I was at Duke, I was in developmental psychology. We studied like the growth and brain process of a lot of children into who they are, right? We talked about playtime and boys and roughhousing. And some people, and obviously raising a boy is way different than raising a girl. I mean, me and you used to wrestle, but you and Devin, can you kind of break down the playtime of your childhood and why you think it was so important in your own family camaraderie and growing up as young men? Like, can you talk a little bit about this? Because you guys, and we had my uncle on the show, you guys were very creative with your games and with how you guys used to play. And explain to me and our viewers a little bit why that was so important to you guys, and especially you as a dad now that you have your own son.
Well, the time spent together with my brothers, with my mom, my dad, doing the same things, being creative, because there's a lot of things we just didn't have, was just so uh, I, they were invaluable, and I was able to kind of bring that into you and Devin. I mean, the things that we did, we were just very creative, but it was the time that we spent. You talk about around the dinner table, you talk about
Yeah.
that. You talk about the things that we used to do on our way to school. I mean, I would not drive to school. I would walk to school, and he would have a mitt and a baseball bat and a football in his hand. And on the way there, we would do something, right? We would do something. With you, I mean, yeah, we did wrestle. I remember one time you tackled me one time. It came out of nowhere. It's like, where did that come from? But you knew that I was approachable. You knew that I wasn't that dad that, okay, that's dad, leave him alone because he's working, he's thinking about something else. I was engaged. I was engaged with you guys because I wanted to be, because that's the way I was brought up, and it's just the memories were just great, and I continue to do that with him. Now he has the least amount of time to spend with me, but I am very careful about walking into his room and jumping on him and trying to wrestle him now, because the results always end bad for me. I'll end up against the wall somewhere because he's 6'5", 220 pounds. But it was just something that was really important. And
Wow.
you're laughing about
Wow.
something.
Because people are not, when while explain to people a little bit, because Debbie used to be like, Dad, can we wrestle? Dad, can
Yeah.
we wrestle? Dad, can we wrestle? And I mean, what did you enjoy that as much? Because Devin, that was a bonding time. I mean, obviously, all you hear is like and Devin's like in his like this is WWE to Devin. Like this is something for him. Like he was like wrestle time. Like every time before bed, like let me go. But he never just jumped on. He was like, Dad, can we wrestle? And as soon as he was like, all right, Devin, you just like explain like that's playtime. That's roughhousing. But like explain a little bit also about getting his energy out and just like teaching him to just enjoy and just have fun with you.
Both of you guys were so much like little Shafer Suggs,
Yeah.
always wanting to smile and have fun and play. And I'm very blessed. Although I had you guys later in life, I still had the energy and the willingness to be there with you. I mean, down in the basement, in the backyard, there was nothing. You remember I had the near fatal car accident, and I came home. I shattered my femur, and I remember the only thing I really wanted to do, forget about walking again, forget about running again. All I wanted to do was give him a horseback ride, right?
Right.
Because that's how much that meant to me. I mean, I had my crutches because he would come at me, and I would have to stiff arm him with my crutches, keep him away from me, because he really wanted to be, he wanted to be with me. And I had this big scar.
Exactly.
He
Foaming at the
could,
mouth.
right. So much energy. Well, actually, both of you, but he's so much energy, and it really translated into um, helping him formulate his confidence as he grew up. Because there's nothing that we didn't try. There's nothing that we do. Everything that I did, I recreated with you guys. The high jump pit, down in the basement, playing dodgeball, playing ditch 'em, all hide and go seek, right? We did it all. And for the fathers that are out there, man, especially during this time, you know, you know, don't be afraid to take that Game Boy, and I don't know you do Game Boy anymore, but those video games away and spend that kind of time doing those kind of things, because they also see my energy. They also see me being a dad, and it's going to. I know my dad was, although he was crazy in a lot of ways, he did the same thing. He had that little slingshot that he made that, he that he would have us run across the floor and see if we can get by without getting hit. I know, right? DCFS would have had him, right? So, but it was just fun stuff. It was nothing that he was doing, but we just had so much fun because we had so much more time together. And
Right.
that's what I'm obviously going to miss, when he goes away from college. But you only get one chance at it, and take the time to do those things, right?
Right. And let's dive a little bit more into the confidence piece. When it
Hmm.
comes to Devin, how did you help him with his self confidence as a young boy who had lost his mom,
Hmm.
and now where he's now about to go out to the world and attend college?
Yeah. Well, some of the examples I helped Devin with his self confidence, especially after losing mommy, was, and it was right. He's getting ready to go to college, but actively engaging in his life. Um, just giving him a healthy perspective on masculinity. Just don't be afraid. We lift weights and we did push-ups and you know just those kind of things I thought was really key with his self-confidence because you know by taking up that time you eliminate any possibility of any risky behaviors, right? Which right now a lot of kids have that time, whether it was McDonald's before we went to school. I mean, I spent that kind of time with him. I would, instead of driving to school, I would walk to school. I mean, it's a time that you spend. And I think as far as his identity, I kind of refer a lot to my young boy as growing up as a little boy. Just kind of realize that I would share those stories about being bullied. I would share those stories that he was able to connect with because he was kind of going through some of the same things, and I was able to kind of have a share with what's happening to you happened to me, and this how I was able to navigate through it. And I think you got to treat them to be courageous. You got to teach them, I mean, for moms, you got to teach them not to be, you know, so needy, right? You got to teach them, to kind of struggle through things. I know you're smiling, but those are some of the things. Teaching them self control. What Devin was key is, oh, Dad, I can't do it. I can't do it. I can't do it. And then, but it's okay to say, yes, Devin, you remember how you did it this way? Remember the last time when you said you couldn't throw the ball over the fence? Yes, you can do it because you're the same kid that looked at Michael Jackson on the iMac and emulated every one of his moves. So there's nothing that you can't do. So encourage him, to that's a good picture, but teaching them that self control, And I think the other thing is what I'm learning as I get older, show him respect with my
Right.
speech,
Mm-hmm.
and give him, show him respect where I speak, and just kind of take an inventory on how we're talking to each other because you have really helped me navigate through that because I'm still growing as a dad too. I'm still learning as a dad too, and not that you were the test pilot because you were a girl, you were completely different, but
Mm-hmm.
you were very helpful in helping me kind of navigate through that. I mean, did we need a mom role? Um, I knew I wasn't the mom, but you kind of assume a lot of that responsibility, Faith, and you did a really good job. When we had other people that kind of stepped in and kind of fill in the gaps, because you still want him to be nurturing. You
Well,
still want him, right? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
no, no, no. And I'm agreeing with you because Devin was a mama's boy. He was.
Hmm.
Because all the time that he spent in his first couple of years was attached to mom because me and you were constantly in the gym, constantly on trips. Me and you were sidekicks, right? And Devin was kind of dragged along, so he was always attached to mama, right? He was
Yeah.
always there. So Devin, the thing people need about Devin is he's very sensitive. He is he the when we talk about how do you speak and show respect is very key on Devin. And I'm glad you touched on that because we do a very good job of trying to communicate fairly. And trying to communicate in a way because he's learning how to communicate through our own conversations, right?
Mm-hmm.
How does dad communicate with him? And nobody's perfect, but we teach him, we talk to him like he's an adult. We talk to him like an adult. Are you able to receive the information you're about to have? Okay, you are or you're not. But those type of things are kind of teaching him because we know that eventually he's going to be a man someday. He's going to be a dad, a husband, a coach, a teammate, right? And he's going to want to have those qualities around because a lot of people don't instill those qualities in their kids, and it's
Right.
very, very, very evident and noticeable,
Mm-hmm.
right? I mean, just touch a little bit more on that. Why you feel as a parent, actually maybe think about this a little bit from your own parenting experience. How did you take things and learn from them and how to talk to him and treat him? And maybe you were like, I learned that. I didn't like it that way. And my own go around with my kid, this is what I'm going to do. Kind of talk about that a little bit because that's healthy parenting.
Very, very different. Very, very different because my dad, um, there was a lot of fear, right? If you didn't do it, you got your ass whooped, right? Mom kind of showed a little of the value why you should do something. So as a parent, we all grew up differently, right? And we learn how to parent based off of what we experience, good or bad, right? And I was able to kind of translate that. I remember going through my whole recovery thing. It's kind of really defining myself, redefining myself, as a man, right? It kind of gave me a fresh slate on how I was going to navigate and how I was going to treat other people, and that also meant how I was going to treat and be a father. So it was very, very different because I was able to kind of snapshot of, okay, no, I can't. First, there's things you couldn't do. I can't do that we used to do. But for me, they worked. There was just a level of fear that there was consequences. So being able to give him and layer a level of consequences to the things that he didn't do or he wouldn't do, but you kind of show him the value to why it's important down the road, why
Right.
it's important to do something, why it's important to be on time, why is it important to respect a woman, why is it important to do certain things because it's going to equate to his football team when he graduates, his job. All those different things are very, very important. The hardest thing for me face was letting go. The subconscious, once he began to start pushing back, I had to begin to honor the process of letting him go and give him
Right.
permission not to need me. That was
Right.
probably
Because
the hardest thing. Yeah.
yeah, he was using all that good speech and communication against you now that he had learned. One question I want to talk about to our parent because Devin was an active child. He was very energetic. Um,
Understatement.
yeah, active, right? Um, to our parents with active children, because Devin is older in his classes, September birthday, we kept him in kindergarten, I think pre-K, kindergarten, so he was more mature when he was going into first grade. Um, in what ways did you discipline him to not be too overactive but also not try to stunt his energy and his creativity? Like how did you guys kind of figure that out? Because I have a feeling that you guys communicated on that because he was very active and attention drawing. How did you guys kind of go about that process?
Well, I try to channel that energy into positive activities, right? That's why football early on was really good for him, really good for him. Just
Okay.
getting him active to channel that energy because you don't want to discourage that. I mean, that's something that a lot of fathers, a lot of mothers go, oh, God, he's not aggressive enough. He's shy. He's this. Those to me were things that I didn't necessarily have. I mean, I was active, but just being okay to go out there and just let go, right?
Mm-hmm.
Your mom used to chase him around everywhere, right? I don't know what to do. Just let him go because it's just good positive energy. It wasn't negative energy. He wasn't. he just was active, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny because people who know him now, they're like, "Gosh, Devin's so chill. Devin's so
Right.
relaxed," and it's just like he was also the kid running through the airport screaming, "You're not my parents." So I'm just saying, we've come a long way. And it's normal for boys to be active like that, right? Very energetic, very, they always want to wrestle. They always want to run this way, that way. I mean, that's normal. So it's good that you guys kind of figured out how to kind of turn it towards a positive thing, because all that battle of energy could have knocked one of us out.
Oh,
Let's talk about a little bit about now that he's a teenager, he's starting to, what were the small lessons you taught him in the beginning on his view on respecting women?
well, I think early in the beginning, I mean, he remembered mommy very, very well. Um, and hopefully he remembered that mommy and daddy was that we treated each other, although we argued sometime. We were husband and wife, and he watched me be respectful. Um, that's where it really starts. Because they always say, when you marry a man, look how he treats his mom, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so those are some of the things that because I had a very phenomenal relationship with my mom. I mean, she was only 15, 16 years older than me, but she was like a sister. But you guys kind of saw a little bit of that. I know you did more than Devin, but you kind of saw that, and just you don't realize how instrumental you were in helping with that. As he gets older now, there's other conversations I'm having with him, but it's okay to hug. It's okay. It's okay to be respectful. It's all those different things. But as he got older, as we get further into our topics, I'll share a little bit more. But because when he became middle school, it was different. I used to tell Sue, I go, the difference between what the girls are wearing in elementary school and middle school is a big difference. So now I'm getting okay. Wait a minute, Devin is going from elementary school to middle school, and he's has different visibility, right? So okay, do we need to have? What he used to say, Dad, I don't want to have the talk. Are we trying to have the talk right now, Dev? We're gonna have the talk all the time, right? But he was very aware of. I wasn't afraid to engage in that type of conversation, but a lot of us around just having respect, right?
Right. And I think that one thing that you taught him is, let's talk about like what's appropriate, how you go about it. I mean, did Devin ever come to you asking like how do you talk to a girl? Or Devin, because Devin's very independent, so I highly doubt that happened.
No, 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 no. So because your dad's would always offer things up, right? You
Yeah,
know,
you're all, what do you want to, Devin's like, oh, no.
right?
Well, I guess for the parents out there, I mean, how can dads kind of be involved but not impose on this part of their life?
What was really good for me is to remember Shafer at his age, okay,
Mm-hmm.
and remember where I was, where my thought process was, and where I wish I had more conversation. Because a lot of times they're going to figure things out, and especially today, when a kid is 9, 10, 11 years old, most of those kids have phones,
Yeah.
and having those phones gives them an opportunity to see things, right, and begin to formulate and hear things. So as a parent, you need to stay close by. Just don't assume that that's happening, because if you don't teach them, something else is going to teach them, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I just, like anything that we've always done, that I've always done as a dad, I'm there, I'm engaged, I'm talking, we're spending time with each other, right?
Mm-hmm.
Pick the right opportune moments, right? Don't necessarily have to sit down and say, okay, out of random, we're going to talk about this. But if you see something, you see a man opening the door for a woman, if you see a man disrespecting, or you see something on TV, that's a good opportunity to have a conversation, because it's not about them. but it's something that they can kind of relate to. And those are the kind of things that I was able to do that I felt worked with Devin.
Right. Let's talk a little bit about like female figures in a kid's life. A lot of kids have the opportunity to have, well, let's talk both female and male figures, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of single parents in society, right? Let's talk about maybe the importance of, do you think that it's important that they have these figures in their life? Or as a single father for most of Devin's, adolescent life, do you think that it's important for him to meet people that you maybe were dating? I mean, how do we talk about the people that were coming into our lives? Like, let's talk a little bit about that. I know you touched on it earlier, but we had many maternal figures in our life, but none of them were really. We never gave them that responsibility role. Never asked them to do that. But some people, maybe, how can we use maybe grandparents or stuff like that? Let's talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. So your dad wasn't perfect. As I was kind of growing into going on with my life, I had to learn those boundaries. And the one of the things that he shared with me just a couple of weeks ago, that he wasn't ready for me to start dating because I should have had that conversation with him, right? And he's right. You're rolling your eyes, right?
Because people who don't know, I'm the kid that's like, whatever makes you happy,
Right.
go do it. I'm that kid. And Devin's more like, I told y'all, he's mama's boy. He's more like, this affects me in some sort of way. So I feel like we should have a conversation and sit down with detailed guidelines. Like, that's Devin. So in a way, and he's a boy, so which is very interesting that he cares. A lot of boys are like, we don't care. But Devin, he's kind of very in touch with his communication. He wants everyone to know, like, look, this is how I feel. I'm just letting you know. Let's have a conversation about it, which is healthy. Talk to us a little bit about how you guys communicated through that when he came to you.
Well, it was, I think what I had to realize, I had to step back. And again, I always talk about sometimes step out of the situation and look from the outside. I have to remember that, anybody that's in that role, whether I'm
Mm-hmm.
dating or whatever it is, okay, that was someplace where mommy was.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to learn how to have a level of sensitivity to that and be respectful to, at least as I got further on, to ask more questions. Are you okay with this? Is it okay with that? And then I had to learn, because then I began to get very defensive, not defensive, but very protective of that.
Mm-hmm.
So when I did date someone, I was very protective of anybody that even suggested anything that
Yeah,
was remotely
not as vulnerable in that area
not
of the life.
exactly. So I'm still getting there, but that's just because that's something you have taught me. As Devin's gotten older, I think now that he's starting to date, and we kind of give each other boundaries, and we also give each other, um, that space, right? And
Right.
we can have very similar conversations around, okay, who we're dating, who we want to bring around, right? And that's important because I've made some mistakes, and so but every time I do, I learn from. And this, for again, I think it's just constant conversation, Faith, constant communication. And I can't begin to tell you how important it is that you have you were able to go away and begin to grow in those areas. It really kind of helped me with that.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's important. I think it's nice though that he was able to kind of absorb, because Devin was a very easy, as he calmed down through life, he was able to absorb, and he never said he needed a maternal figure. And this is what I try to tell people all the time. It's not necessary for a parent, whether it's single mother or single father, to fill that gap, because children are going to be affected in some sort of way. That's just their path, the journey that God has planted for them.
Hmm.
That is just what is supposed to happen for their life. Nothing is necessary or needed. So don't feel like you have to fill that void, because it's, at the end of the day, as
Right.
long as you have communication, and I'm all for it, just because you're a father, you still have the ability to have compassion and open up with
Hmm.
your feelings. But you also provide forms of masculinity and structure. That's a great balance as a single parent
Mm-hmm.
with your kids, because at the end of the day, those are the type of things that are supposed to be creating us into the people we are. Not looking up to a father with structural roles and looking up to a mother with structural roles. It's 2020. Kids are starting to form into their own little unicorns, their own different things, taking and bringing in everything they see. So I think that it's important that it's not necessary or needed for you to fill these roles. You just have to make sure you provide kids with everything you think they need from you. And I'm glad that you touched on that because you did a very good job. You didn't try to fill mom's role, but you were able to provide us with compassion, vulnerability, show us how to communicate effectively. A lot of things that women are normally very good at.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Thank you.
let's talk. You're welcome. Let's talk a little bit as we kind of get into our final 15 minutes fun part of our segment. Let's talk a little bit about the guidelines and structure of creating a man. Okay, we talked about the fun stuff, about how to instill self-confidence, how to respect women and how to view women and have that relationship with women. Let's talk about the guidelines of becoming a man. Okay, let's talk about creating a first impression. What are some of the things that you kind of instilled in Devin and how to gain respect and how to become a man, a strong, independent man?
The first thing was first impression was the handshake. The
Mm-hmm.
handshake. Remember Major Jones? How you handshake? Look in the eyes, right? That's your first impression right there. I mean, you actually have a handshake. That's the first impression. Um, Sir, yes, sir, no, sir. Just whether it's another man, yes, ma'am, whether it's an authority figure, teacher, coach. Those are things that was instilled with me early on. Was that first impression, especially as a kid of color, you don't want to validate any negative perceptions. It's one of the things that my mom really taught me is that, you don't want to validate any negative perceptions because you don't know what you're going to navigate into. So don't be afraid to step up, look in the eyes, okay, articulate your words, and those are important though. Those are things. That's the foundation. That's something
Mm-hmm.
that in Devon, because I think a lot of it is I was able to understand because that people say, were you shy, right? My dad would push me to do those things, but my mom showed me the value of doing those things, right? Because I was quiet, right? And as I got more and more confident, I think sports really helped. I kind of matured, really helped. I learned the importance in being able to do that because it allowed me to
Right.
transcend all dynamics, because you know here's a good example. Working in white corporate America, I knew when I walked into an office for the first time, I had about 5 seconds to overcome any negative perception that anyone had about me. So my shoes
Mm-hmm.
were shine. I was on time. Okay, I looked them in the eyes. I found something that I could relate to. That's something that I learned early on with my mom, and those are the kind of things that I instill not only in the kids that I raise, but the kids that I coach. How important it is to be able to do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And let's talk a little bit about, because I like that, because those are a few things that you have instilled in us is the power of eye contact, the power of a great handshake, how to speak up, how to stand up straight. With all those annoying things, you instilled it not only in just Devin, but you instilled it in me as well, just to be able to also see and know that even when I'm growing up into a woman, and when I raise a young man, that he will have the same qualities and lessons as you instilled in us. And I most likely I always analyze men because I'm in athletics. I analyze men and how they act and treat, and I'm like, well, they weren't taught to hold eye contact with me. Or when I shake a man's hand and it's like a little dead fish, and I'm like, he didn't have
Right?
Shafer Suggs in his corner. Like those type of things
Mm-hmm.
are noticeable things. And if you think that men, as a woman, if you think that men don't notice your handshake, or men already assume that you're not going to have the qualities because you weren't, I was raised by a man. I know how to give a good handshake. And
Mm-hmm.
Devin is as well. He's really well spoken. He knows how to hold conversations, even though he is kind of shy like you. Um, you were. Can you dive a little bit into chivalry? how to act with women. Since we touched on women, but how do you act with women? Some of the things that you taught him that he maybe would have learned from mom, but you kind of gave him the little push.
That's important. It's important. I think with chivalry, just taking the time to understand how important that is. Whether you open the door, right? I mean, I watched him navigate a relationship for the last 2 years. I was amazed how much of a gentleman he was. Just absolutely much to a fault. I always thought, right? Amazed, and it made me feel so good. He would write the cards when he asked to the prom. He was innovative. He was creative. He wasn't as afraid to show some vulnerability, right? He wasn't afraid to do any of those things. No, I can't believe you did that. You're a wimp. No, he wasn't afraid to do that. And those are the kind of things that I learned how to do, because it's learning how to have affection. It's learning how to embrace it. Because that's, you talk about the feminine side. Men have to have that also too, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, those are things that I just observed, and hopefully it was a result of how I raised him and
Mm-hmm.
what he saw
Mm-hmm.
in me, and going forward, because he's going to have more and more opportunities as he get down the road. There's a lot of landmines out there that we can talk about that he needs to watch out as he navigates into a different environment. College football,
Yeah.
professional football. Those are whole nother conversations. Why it's important to maintain that mindset.
Compass, kind of. But and it's funny because it's Devin, because how old was he when mom passed away? He had lost that kind of physical example of how men are supposed to treat women. But we were able to give, because you gave him a lot of examples. But I always tell him, well, you're supposed to open the door, the car door, indoors for women. And he'll always be like, whatever. And I'm like, well, you also have to walk on the inside of the street. And he was like, who told you that? And I was like, life. Like these are kind of things that he kind of like, he thinks is silly, but then he kind of sees the value of it when he all of a sudden is like, oh, I like her. I'm gonna actually try. And then he sees the value of doing these things and
Mhm.
showing things to gentlemen and respecting other people. Let's talk a little bit about him as a child of color or a young man of color in society. Can you talk to us a little bit about conversations that you have had to have or act about and do? Let's talk about the sticker on the car the other day. Like, let's talk a little bit about how you structure him to understand what's going on around him, especially in
Right.
2020.
I like the way you put that. Is know your audience. Oh,
Yep.
know your audience. Understand what's around you, and that's something I learned a long time ago. And I was fortunate to have my mom, teach me that. Back in the '60s, when it was outwardly dangerous, there's places that you couldn't go, and how to carry yourself. And I think it's whether it's a boy of color or boy or whatever is it gets back to always being respectful. Okay, you get pulled over, you need to be respectful.
Yep.
Okay, be respectful. Um, First of all, if you haven't done anything wrong, okay, you're going to be okay, right? But that doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to engage a difficult situation, but diffuse it. But why you carry yourself, and this is something that you've always done, is be respectful. Yes, sir. No, sir. Those are the kind of things that was instilled in me at a young age, because it was obviously in some cases that you got pulled over for the wrong reason. So how do you de-escalate it, right? Be able to do that. And the one great example of on Netflix has a movie called All American, and there was the one family. Ty Diggs' son was a biracial kid who was hanging out with his buddy in Beverly Hills, and he went and go pick him up, and he got pulled over, and he was driving, and he experienced something that he's never experienced before, and he ended up face down on the ground because he had never experienced. But his dad never had to talk, and I remember the other kid, the black kid who was from what part? Yeah, Compton. He said, "Why have you never had that conversation with your son?" He said, "Well, I didn't. I knew I was going it, but I didn't think I needed to." Right. And so for Devin, God, it just it talks about, I've had this conversation with many of my friends, many of my white friends. And I shared the time about 3 or 4 weeks ago where I waited 3 hours to get his inspection sticker because I didn't want him to get pulled over. Right. And then he went out last night. I go, son, don't speed. Don't do anything. So those are the things that, as a dad, that's very aware. I love what you said, Faith. Know your surroundings. Be aware, right? Because if you haven't done anything wrong, okay, you leverage that by being respectful. And a lot of times that's going to diffuse. And then that's just the way I was brought up. Because I had to learn how to navigate. I always use that word transcend. I had to go into the situation and figure out a way to connect, right? Versus, okay, why are you pulling me over, right? So, no excuse for someone to treat somebody a certain way, but just a way that I've learned how to navigate life is what I've taught you guys. I mean, you got pulled over about a year ago, and I couldn't get your insurance, but because that lady wasn't very nice, but because
No.
the way you carried yourself, right? I couldn't get the sticker over to you through my app, and we had to navigate through that. But that could have been completely a different story if you did not handle yourself the right way. And as he navigate, he's in college, he's going to Yale, right? A lot of times athletes get a pass, right?
Yeah.
But that doesn't give him the right to be a jerk, right? Don't be a jerk, right? Be respectful. And I think if he continues up that path, he may run into those challenges, but he'll figure out how to navigate through it. I hope I answered that.
Mm-hmm. And the power of his athletic platform, of the
Right.
power of wearing a Yale football T-shirt
Right.
outside, the power of difference between wearing street clothes and his Yale sweatsuit. That he'll be perceived and received very differently
Right.
by the authority and other people. Just teaching him how that matters. But we are coming toward the end of our show. We have an answer, which is a trick question, and technically she is right. Because it was 2018, 2019. So you do have to send your cousin a mug.
All right. Well, that's too much for her because she was on the good job. 2018, 2019. And how many charges did you take?
11, 12, 11.
12. I remember. Yeah.
Yeah. But no, I think this is a great show. I hope it helped a lot of people. I think this is always a fun topic because we touch on girl dad and we touch on the beauty of that relationship and how powerful that is. But young men, until women take over the world, young men are a lot of the leaders in our country, in our world, and a lot of the communicators that make up a lot of the office rooms and boardrooms that surround us in corporate America and in the athletics and in the world. So it's very powerful that you're able to have a strong, important relationship, understand the values and that you instill in your son. And if anybody has any questions, feel free to reach out to us post-show. We are constantly doing that. Reminder to send Suggs mugs, addresses, if requests, you can DM us or you can email us at faithfamilyfocus14@gmail.com. But thank you again, everyone, for joining us this wonderful 4th of July Friday, but also Faith Family Focus Friday morning. We are so thankful for those of us stop by to discuss with us. We'll be back on Monday. Keep it going. So thank you to also Amazon Fire, YouTube, Facebook, Roku, Apple TV, and our key platform out of Phoenix, Arizona, E360 TV. Again, this is Faith Family Focus, where we're going to use our faith as a vehicle to help heal and sustain others on their path to strengthen their family core. So again, let go, let God, let go, let faith, and let go, let love. Everyone have a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful weekend. And we will see you guys on Monday.